Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business-focused podcast covering all things tech, engineering and innovation. Hosted by me, Chris Broome, a huge tech, motorsport and gaming fan, and also the owner of Longhurst, a firm of lifestyle financial planners and independent financial advisors located in Silverstone, Northamptonshire. This is a series of unscripted and unpolished conversations with leading business owners, thought leaders and high-tech talent where we discuss their experiences within the Silverstone business and motorsport region. We will also be asking them to share their knowledge, insight and their thoughts on the future just for you. If you're looking to learn more about the Silverstone high growth region and commercially connect with like-minded peers, you've definitely come to the right place. Welcome to Inside Silverstone. Welcome to the next episode of Inside Silverstone. My name is Chris Broome and I am your host. Today I am delighted to be hosting another session of the Mastermind Sessions. Mastermind Sessions number 2, which we have just renamed Business Challenges, addressing the skills gap. So I'll explain that again. Business Challenges, addressing the skills gap. So I am absolutely delighted to welcome 3 STC board members to this recording, and I'm going to pass across to them to quickly introduce themselves, so you can explain to our wonderful listeners who you guys are and what you do, and then we will get into the questions. So I'm going to start with you. Who are you and what do you do?
John Corbett. I'm the head of SME for Barclays across the South East Midlands and Cambridgeshire region, and Barclays Bank, of course.
Wonderful, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Simon Arkell. I am a partner at EMW Law, based in Milton Keynes. My main practice area is corporate, so I work on acquisitions, disposals, investments into businesses, advising directors and shareholders, when I'm not sitting as a STC board member.
Great, thank you.
Chris, thank you. Mark Clement, director at Grant Thornton, professional services firm, primarily focused on accountancy matters. My role within the business is I run our transaction services business. So a bit like Simon, I support businesses in making acquisitions, quotations on the stock market, that sort of area.
Okay, wonderful. Before I get into the main questions, I'm actually going to ask you another question. You all sit on the board of the STC. So why have your businesses and you as individuals decided to sit on the board of the STC?
So if I kick off, in terms of from a Barclays perspective, then it's very much around how we are helping and supporting the business community and the economy in our region. And that fundamentally is where we see Silverstone Technology Cluster, STC, as playing a role. For me personally, the remit is a bit more around putting something back into the area in the region that I've spent all my life in, lived and worked in. So that's a personal thing, but the business reason is how we can support that growth in our local economy.
Okay, fantastic. And for Grant Thornton?
Yeah, for Grant Thornton, very much in line with our sort of desire to create and help a vibrant economy. We saw the Silverstone Technology Cluster as being an integral part of that within this region. So for us it was a complete no-brainer to get involved in such an excellent sort of organisation.
And for EMW law firm?
Not dissimilar, Chris, and we talked about this in the podcast that I did with you did some months ago. You know, what a great local opportunity for us to get involved with. We're giving something back. We're helping something grow. We're helping the businesses then hopefully that are in and around STC that we can. Obviously, there's the possibility that we'll all get opportunities out of it, but really it's about us being there in the middle of something really exciting locally and part of something that hopefully we can help it grow into a great organisation, and it's just good being in the middle of it.
I think that bit around, you've asked us about our firms, professional service firms, for want of a better description. It's about building that trust and helping and support, as I mentioned in my podcast, the ecosystem.
Yes.
We're providing that support, that network that can help businesses grow, can help them thrive. And if we can help deliver that, then as businesses will benefit.
It's kind of one of those situations, isn't it, John, where the opportunities fall out of things, but they're not the driver to do it. It's a byproduct of why, and it's about being in the ecosystem.
And so the businesses that we're all supporting, so obviously Longhurst, Chris Broome, another professional advice firm, these businesses and these business owners are facing challenges every day, and that's part of what I wanted us to really talk about. Yeah. So the title of the episode is Business Challenges, Addressing the Skills Gap. So let's talk about that. So what are your thoughts? What's the headline there, John?
When we were talking about this, actually, in terms of what subject matters and talking about challenges for businesses, I look at the things that I hear on a regular basis from businesses that are potentially stopping growth or inhibiting growth. And there's three areas that I hear about from a range of different industries, range of different size businesses. One is about how they get more clients, how do they enter new markets, that is, traditionally we've talked about that as being overseas. Actually now it's digital channels, it's about those sort of areas as well. The second thing is I did think this was perhaps unique to our region, but it's probably a bit broader than that, and that's around right-sized premises. So where can they grow their business into? We see a lot of sheds going up in our region, but is there the right-sized businesses for SMEs grown into? But the number one thing that they talk about is skills, and skills is not just about retention; it's about recruitment, particularly when we look at some of the industries that we've got that are prevalent in our region, where, if I take engineering as an example, ageing workforce in lots of instances, how do you attract youngsters into the business? And that sounds like a bit of a generalisation about ageing population, but there is, across a lot of industries, there is a challenge about how you attract kids coming out of school or people re-educating themselves or reskilling into their industries. And, some of the challenges that throws up, again, is around the retention, which is, it is the skills attraction, but it's also the retention of that, if that makes sense.
And how do we overcome some of those challenges? So from a recruitment perspective, how do you? So, you obviously are leaders in your own businesses. How do you overcome those challenges?
I think you've got to throw the net really wide in terms of your search for the talent that you need for your business.
Okay.
And by that, I mean, it's not just about, going for the university leavers. You've got to start with schools, and throw it and get those people into your organisations much sooner.
Okay.
So that, they can see the benefits of coming into your business. You see what they're like, and you can start that journey with them much sooner rather than waiting until they're post-university. So,
but it's not, within that, it's not waiting for the education system just to throw out.
No.
The raw material, if you like. There is a bit that you need to engage earlier than that with the schools and not just rely on the university graduates. It's about engaging in different avenues, particularly when you're talking about the youngsters, whether it be apprenticeship programs or other ones.
Because the thing is, for those talented individuals, the demand is massive.
Sure.
So everybody's competing for that same quality. So you've got to do something different as a potential employer to bring them to your business rather than going to another business. And so I think it's, I've read about sort of, particularly the millennials. They're looking for a bit more than just, what's my pay going to be?
Sure.
They're after culture, vision, purpose, all these other things which perhaps, when I was sort of growing up, I didn't really think about, but that's what they're thinking about. So it's got to be a much broader package that you're offering these.
And that
these campers.
I mean, I think in my last podcast I talked about every member of my family, and actually when I talked to my son, my oldest boy, a few years ago about what his career path was going to be, and my perception on success was about how much money can I earn. And how, what is my career path in terms of that success? His was about what more am I going to give back to society, and what an organisation I work for, what are they going to give to me in terms of me as an individual, making me more rounded. That was a completely different mindset in terms of how I'd sort of like come through leaving school and going into working in a bank.
And hard for us. I think it's hard to. You've got to adapt, haven't you, here, and be so flexible. I think that's the way we are now as an employer. We just have to be so flexible because you can find yourself opposite somebody who's talking like that actually you think, well, this is out of left field. If you're rigid in the way you've always run your business and always you recruited your talent and offered jobs to that, if you're not adaptive, if you don't adapt, and if you're not flexible to what the new generations might want, you're going to lose out.
Absolutely.
And I think it's across the board in all sorts of different parts of certainly our business. We're having to just offer things that we just wouldn't have done, we wouldn't have contemplated, and having to be so flexible about allowing people to work when they want to work and where they want to work and how they want to work, and if they want to work at between 9 and 1 in the morning and 7 and midnight, then sort of giving them that flexibility that's okay. If that fits your wider needs in your life, and then it works for us as much as it works for you.
Do you think businesses will find that, existing businesses will find that challenging to be able to move away from the typical 9 to 5? You've got to come into our office, you've got to commute through rush hour, through to what EMW have done very successfully, as we discussed on the podcast, which is one of creating a wonderful culture where dress appropriately for the meeting you're going to, the hours that they work very hard, but there's a little bit more flexibility around that. Is that a challenge for other businesses to be able to pivot and evolve? And if they don't, are they running the risk of either losing or not attracting the right people?
Just to sort of finish where we've got to with that, I think part of the reason why we feel that we have to offer real, genuine flexibility around working hours and how and where you do your job is purely because certainly sort of around this area, the road infrastructure just isn't going to take it any longer, and the amount of wasted time people spend in cars in the mornings trying to all converge on a 9 a.m. start. Just that, it seems silly to say it, but just that alone is a reason to have to allow people to move around those working hours.
And I'd extend that. Certainly it's a big focus around in our organisation about the dynamic working. And not only is that around those things, just physical premises and the infrastructure challenges that perhaps, but it's also about then you attract a diverse workforce as well, and that creating that diverse workforce, to enable you to be more rounded as an organisation and have a better culture within your organisation, you have to be flexible in that approach. You have to not be as rigid as perhaps organisations have been in the past, because then you're not just doing it for diversity reasons, but you're attracting the best talent, and that's what this is about.
What helps in all of this, of course, is the technology that we have available to enable us to do it.
Yes.
10, 15 years ago, working at home was involved VPNs and
VPN dial-in or whatever. I mean, but now
that's a VPN.
but now it's you can do it. It's easy.
Sure.
So why force the people to come into work day in day out? When you've got that, you can still be as effective in.
But it's a real balance actually, because by the very nature that because you've now got technology, you're almost 24/7.
Yes. True.
If you're not careful, and that brings its own challenges in terms of stress levels and mental health issues, etc. So it is a real fine balance, and as an employer, you have to really understand that, and what works for one might not work for another.
Yes.
And actually, as a leader in your business, when you're managing a workforce in a very different way to what we traditionally came through as, that creates another different challenge that you have to think differently in terms of how you engage with your teams as well.
I think that we had a chap who was with the business, left, and then came back, and throughout that period he was away, things developed. But that culture of the team all sitting together in one location, to this sort of environment whereby he may work from home one day or he's in the office one day, but then when he gets to the office, the other team members are working from home. Actually, trying to ensure that you've got that team ethos and spirit amongst your workforce, that becomes a challenge when you've got this sort of agility to your working place.
Must involve a huge element of trust, right, on everybody, but then also I guess a bit of peer pressure from their colleagues. So I guess if someone isn't cutting, working hard enough or coming in or doing the hours, and I guess obviously their colleagues will pull them up. But I guess businesses may be fearful of adopting a more relaxed sort of approach through fear of people potentially taking the mickey. Or
we've certainly kind of taken a view on that issue that it's not fair to you're gonna know. You find out pretty quickly who it is who's not pulling their weight, and it's not. And if generally the body of opinion is that flexibility around hours and location of work is a good thing, you shouldn't pull that back just because there's one or two individuals somewhere in a team who don't want to don't want to play ball, and you then have to deal with those people in isolation. But at least the group can do can get on and work in the way they want. There are challenges all over it.
Sure.
With it, I think the point John makes around suddenly you're having to manage people in 5 or more different ways because their working habits are different is a challenge for leaders in a business. And I think we've certainly gone through some growing pains with it, but it's I think it'll be here for some time.
It is, and it does require a different mentality, and it is that bit around having those, being flexible in terms of the way you operate, creating the right culture within the organisation is what helps attract the right quality of candidate or the right calibre of people into the organisation. And then it's making sure that they're brought into that culture that you've created, because you've got to make sure it's inclusive in the right way.
This is adding a whole other dimension to it, though, isn't it? Recruiting talent and making sure that you can bring the right people into your business. It's no longer just about what they can do, because you're talking about your son. Culture is so important. Yeah, we all have to be able to demonstrate that we have either an interesting or a culture that's a bit different, something that as Mark says, makes us look different to the competition or whatever it is in your business area. The problem with culture is it's destroyed by people who then behave in the wrong way or abuse it. Absolutely. So they might be exceptionally good technically at whatever they're doing in the role that they've got, but they just don't fit the culture. And so now you're recruiting constantly with this. Okay, you're technically brilliant, Mark, but I'm just not sure you're going to fit. It's so important to get that right.
Now he tells me. Is this his appraisal for the STC board?
and bar potentially sort of flexible working hours, or treating everybody with a like adults and giving them the respect and the space and the time to work how they want to work, but doing successfully. How else can you incentivise the best people to join your business at any level, whether it be from new recruits through to senior management, senior executives, people that are going to help push and drive your business forward from a leadership perspective, perhaps. How do you incentivise those people to join?
Well, I think at the where you're recruiting them in at perhaps the more junior level, I think for me it's about what skills development programs you can put in place to help them on their journey to become the future leaders of the business. I think that's important. I think it's also recognizing that as those people go through the organization, it's not just about the technical skills, as Simon says. It's having those skills, whether it's empathy in terms of dealing with other people, or your clients or your customers or your suppliers. Those sorts of softer skills and the training and the development that comes with that, I think, are equally important.
Do you think social media is going to start drumming things like empathy and human interaction out of people? The millennials, the next generation coming through, being able to sit there face to face and talk to somebody?
Got to wonder where that whole thing's going to go.
Sure.
Because it's starting to get to the point where you're starting to wonder whether or not social media is actually going to have a long-term future. In business, I don't know. We see. LinkedIn, things obviously is a major part, but so much time spent in it now that actually I've started to encounter more and more people, or what I'm trying to say is, who are starting to sort of almost declutter their digital lives and get rid of some of this stuff, because it's constantly it's impacting too much, and bringing back the interaction between people is becoming more and more important again.
I look at it from a whether it's social media, digital capabilities generally. We've got to enable people to use the digital channels, but still we've got to, and I'm talking about from a banking perspective, from a Barclays perspective. So digitally enable people, but still relationship manage people. And it's still about that interpersonal skills that either we're looking for in terms of the people that we bring in, but also the skills that they have, not just as a team, but with their clients. But we need to be able to use social media and other digital channels to support how we might interact either with clients or the channels that they might want to use, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I think it's not about replacing the personal interaction, it's actually complementing it, but in a different way.
Enhancing it.
Yeah. I think your point around, when I look now, more and more people actually want to talk to someone.
Yeah, agree. Well, and I think we're trying to nurture that, because it's the bit that's going to, as machines start to become more and more adept at doing some of the tasks, actually the bit that's going to then separate you and certainly in our industry, the ability to interact with clients and the ability to interact with your customers and talk and have a conversation and get instructions out of them and understand what the job is. You can't do that well over an email or over some kind of channel on social media, and the machines can't do it very well either. So that's the bit that we have to nurture, because it'll get lost if we don't try and nurture it.
And that's why I think it's important that downstairs here at the Silverstone Innovation Centre, you've got the agile working space.
Yes.
At our offices, you've got the collaboration space.
Barclays,
you've got the lab.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure EMW got the same sort of venue where people can come together. From a diverse, business community that in and around, whether it's here, Milton Keynes, or wherever, and actually come together and communicate.
And I was struck actually by the SDC conference only a few weeks ago, how many of those businesses that you perceive it, it's a networking event or it's a conference, but actually they just enjoy getting in the same room with like-minded people and talking about things that
talking
were
business.
Common. Talking about common challenges, and that's what you've created in terms of your working space, what we've created in an Eagle Lab, to create that community, because it comes back to people who do want to deal with people. The bit I just also refer back to, you talked about when we're bringing people in and what we offer them, both in terms of employment but also the development, and I think that's really important, that people can see that they've got you're interested in their development, you're interested in creating a career path for them. And too often we'll focus our attention on development about how you address your weaknesses. Sometimes it's about, you're really good at that, let's develop it, let's enhance it. And I always someone relayed back to me years ago, you take it a football analogy. Ryan Giggs at Man United, Alex Ferguson didn't say you're great on the left wing, but you're rubbish in goal, so let's put you in goal for a few games and see if you can develop your goalkeeping skills. He didn't. He said, you're great on the left wing, you're great with the left foot, let's focus on what you're really good at and make you the best in the world at that. And sometimes in a business environment, what we do is we take people in, well, you're great at that, but you're not so good at that, so let's focus on the bits you're not good at in your development. Does that make sense? I think sometimes, when we look at building management teams, focus on what people are good at. Don't try and make them something they're not. And that's how you build a strong management team, because people know the bit that they're good at, recognise your weaknesses and cover that up with other people that are good at that area, but focus on what you're good at.
From my experience dealing with management teams, which I do a lot in a lot of the investment work that I do, investors coming into companies, what they're actually looking for often is a team of people that actually, when in isolation, one of them might not be that great, but at two or three of the other but you put them all together and they actually are a very effective management team. And I think in business, certainly in that sort of context, people playing to their strengths is exactly what can help make a company successful, because the leadership team are all good, have all got a slightly different skill set that actually, when together, makes them a complete package.
And businesses don't fail for things like, they do sometimes in terms of lack of cash or otherwise, but it's usually because of lack of management capability. Actually, but similarly, that's why business succeed, because they've got the right management structure, and that's what makes them successful. And it's how you play to those strengths that determines business success.
And I think businesses have got to be at times brave to make those difficult decisions.
Okay.
I've seen that happen where you have someone
who may be fantastic at strategy and all the rest of it in a very senior role within an organisation, but they don't need a strategist. They need someone who can roll up their sleeves. And I've seen those people being moved on and the right person being put in place. So they've got to be brave as well.
What other challenges?
Keeping that management team around. I mean, I think certainly SMEs are, you need people who perhaps own a business in early stage or in scale up mode, or who don't, they aren't necessarily able to be paid or pay themselves what they probably deserve for the amount of time and effort they're putting into their business, but actually, looking to incentivize key people to hang around and stay there, drive the business over a 5-year period or whatever it might be, again, is really critical. I think that's, and we've encountered, there's various ways you can do that, but one of them is money, but it's not always there to pay out. But giving people the ability to join into sort of schemes where they'll have a shareholding, or in the company at the point where it gets sold, maybe is kind of really important.
So things like EMI.
Yeah, EMI.
So what is EMI? So for everyone watching this and listening, what is it?
So the Enterprise Management Incentive Scheme, which has been around for, crikey, I'm trying to think now, a long time. But kind of pretty much, I think HMRC, the government's sort of favoured route of getting shares into the ownership of people who work in the business.
Okay.
Now, it's not for everyone because there are limits over the size of the business, the number of employees you've got, and various other metrics. But ultimately, you can, there is a way that you can get a shareholding into someone who works in the business very tax efficiently. And the beauty of it is you stop working for the company and you lose the options. The EMI scheme requires you to be an employee in the business. So it's a great way of trying to get somebody who's got talent to hang around, because if they can you can sort of add performance metrics to it and make them, they get more if the business is sold for a bigger number, which again is just all adds to kind of make them think, well, actually, there's an alternative, but no, I'm going to stay here because I've got this great opportunity.
And it incentivises not only the retention, but also it motivates them to, drive the business, because they've got an interest, a vested interest in doing so. But it goes back to what we talked about. That's sort of like some mechanisms, but you've got to have other levers that you can pull. As long as people generally are paid what they think is fair for their job as well, it's making sure that's fair. But then there's other ways that you can incentivise, whether that's through benefit schemes, pensions, and health benefits, and otherwise. And we'll probably have those in terms of our organisations, which are a bit larger. But there is mechanisms that you can have that in SMEs as well.
Other challenges. So we've covered off, location, flexibility, compensation, incentives, share schemes perhaps. How else do we fill the skills gap?
I think for me, a lot of the skills gap is, something I mentioned earlier is about how do we as SMEs make sure we're engaging with the education system in the right way.
Yeah.
And showcasing some of, certainly in the region, some of the industries we've got, and demonstrate how it's an exciting region to be part of. There's great opportunity. There's some really exciting things going on in the sector, and I think and I'm talking more from the organisations the STC is trying to support, rather than necessarily us in our profession. But how could having that ability to actually demonstrate that. The engineering skill requirements is around the digital agenda. Digital isn't just about coding to make games and things like that. There's a lot of other applications that it's relevant for in a wide range of industries. And I think there's a bit there that certainly from the STC, I think the local enterprise partnership does some great work in that space. STC, we've talked about that as one of our agenda items, in terms of engaging a diverse workforce, but also how do we educate youngsters or young adults that are thinking about retraining, going into different career paths, that there is those opportunities. And it's exciting.
Well, Silverstone Park obviously have engaged and hired Gaia Innovation, who are obviously doing huge schools projects at the moment, sort of for local colleges and schools. And so for businesses and business owners listening to this and watching this right now, if they're thinking, how do I engage with the school? Actually, talk to Silverstone Park, talk to Roz and the team and Ruth and
local enterprise partnership. There's different avenues you can do that rather than us waiting for the raw material to come out. That sounds awful.
No, but you're right. Yeah,
about
out of the system.
Yeah, waiting for that to go and then say, actually, it's not fit for purpose for what I need.
Yeah,
actually getting earlier and start to help the schools.
There's two parts to it, aren't there? It's sort of, on the one hand, it's kind of the wow factor for the kids. It's kind of getting in front of them and saying, look what a career in engineering, for example, could be like. Look what we're doing. And a lot of the time, there've been visits, haven't there, here? And a lot of the children are kind of, it's almost like they don't know what they don't know, and when they see things, they go, wow, you really do that? That's your job. That's kind of really inspiring. But then it's the other side of the coin, isn't it? It's actually, we've got, I know there's people around the boardroom table at SDC, aren't there, who are constantly complaining that actually it's actually the materials that are being taught on courses isn't appropriate for what actually they need. And it's how we can can interfere and get and influence the curriculum, because that ultimately leads us to the problem of people coming out with the wrong training.
It is, and the danger is that if we don't address that, then the talent drifts into other areas, and we've got. It's a great benefit in terms of the location we are in the country, but it also has a risk because it's easily accessible for talent to go into London, into Birmingham, into Oxford, into Cambridge. Which I'm not saying that's wrong, but we've got.
But it's another challenge, really, isn't it?
It's another challenge. How do
you were asking for challenges, Chris.
That's another podcast, isn't it? Yeah. How do we prevent them from leaving?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why would you want to leave Northamptonshire?
There we are. South Northamptonshire is beautiful, right?
Yeah, and North Buckinghamshire.
Or North Buckinghamshire. I mean, we encounter that problem. I mean, it's just endless. We've had countless situations where actually people, have worked here, and then almost decided that they want to, to look at London and move down to our London office. And actually, all we've done by letting them go is just given them the opportunity to go to interviews in their lunch hour, which isn't the right answer. It's very it's challenging. As you say, the fact that we're so close to those big centres, I think. Great training, great experience, doing some interesting stuff. All it does is just carries with it that inherent risk that person's going to take all of that good experience.
But I also come back to and it's about we need to make sure our environment is still. South Northampton's a lovely place to live, Buckinghamshire, lovely place to live. In terms of that environment. I think the other thing that. When we look at why the cluster is here, and I go back to the original report that developed the STC, when we talk to a lot of the companies that of the magic carpet question, if you could pick your business up and you could go anywhere in the world, where would you want to be? And a lot of the companies said here that are in sort of engineering, high performance technology. Reason because of the skills. Yeah. So there's. Not only is it attractive, but if we don't keep those skills, or the capabilities, then you start to diminish what is your unique selling point if we're not careful. But we need to make sure that that's still in the nice environment that we all see and we all live in. If that makes sense.
It does. Chaps, I'm thinking about drawing the interview and the podcast to a close. I think it's been 30 plus minutes, which I think is a good stint. Is there anything before I start closing it down that we haven't covered off, or anything that you'd like to mention, or maybe a suggestion for a future episode that we can do together?
In terms of future episodes, I think we talked about business challenge and we focused on skills. There's other things that I'm sure we could talk about in terms of future episodes. I think the bit that I draw back to. You asked the question earlier on, why are we and our organisations involved in the STC?
Yes.
and it's to address some of the issues that we've talked about, or to help address those, because actually that's what helps our economy grow and our economy thrive. I think that's the important thing that people need to understand, that get involved in the SGC because you can help influence it as well.
Well said, John.
Here. John, Simon, Mark, thank you very, very much for coming on the show, and I look forward to doing future ones with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the latest Mastermind Session, courtesy of the Inside Silverstone podcast. My name's Chris Broome. We will be recording a third Mastermind session in due course, all on electric vehicles, so stay tuned for that. Can I also ask, certainly if you're listening to this via iTunes as a podcast, can you please scroll down the screen and give it a 5-star review? The more reviews we get, the more people will listen to us, so we appreciate your support as always. The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst for the benefit of those with a passion for all things tech, engineering and innovation. For more information, please visit longhurst.co.uk/Inside Silverstone, whilst also remembering to give us a 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Please note that neither Chris Broome or Longhurst work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Circuit or Silverstone Technology Cluster.